Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of the Close Encounters podcast. Listen, apologies for the delay in getting this one out. I have been in the middle of relocating, so for the past couple of weeks I've been planning, packing, moving and settling into a nice area near Portsmouth. The weather here has been brilliant so far, so I think I've made a good choice. But as always, your appetizer this evening will start off with 4 of the more interesting and paranormal news encounters that I have discovered this week. Then for your main course we have some homegrown accounts and stories from none other than Fra MacDonald, the founder of Shadowhunters Northern Ireland, one of the few actual professional paranormal investigative teams in Northern Ireland, and perhaps the UK as well. And then finally it'll be a brief recap of what we just spoke about, and I look forward to what's happening in the next episode. But for now, let's see what has caught my eye in our news segment with That's What I Call News. That's what I call news. I quite enjoy doing this bit actually, because I get to share with you some of the items of news that I've discovered over the past week or so. And let us start by going to livescience.com. Now, the sun may have captured up to 5 rogue planets over millennia. In a relatively new study published in the Astrophysical Journal Letters late last year, it's been revealed that simulation suggests that the Sun may have been able to capture up to 5 free-floating planets, or rogue planets for want of a better word, in its early days. Now, the planets, if the simulations are correct, would be similar in size to those within the inner solar system and more likely to be rocky in nature, though would be lurking in the Oort cloud, which is located well beyond Pluto and even in the realms of interstellar space, if I'm correct. So a little bit far for them to sustain life as we know it. But due to the nature of what rogue planets are, i.e. formed in another solar system, it makes them interstellar by definition and would make them likely candidates for future exploration if proven to be there. It's a fairly lengthy article, so I'd encourage you to go and have a read for yourself. The link, as always, is in the show notes below. Going over to Coast AM, Canadian Air Traffic Control audio released of pilots discussing unexplained lights over Canadian prairies. Now, this is something that caught my interest. In a 13-minute long audio clip, it's been released, in which you can hear multiple pilots discuss among themselves and air traffic control about a strange formation of lights that they had seen on the evening of the 19th of January. Now, they reported that the lights would occasionally come together to form a triangle. Let's have a listen to this, actually. Let's have a short listen to this.
R7062, go ahead.
Yeah, is there any active military airspace just like north of Winnipeg?
No, nothing I'm aware of. You said north of Winnipeg?
Yeah.
No, not right now.
Okay. Lots of active bright lights, information, 3, and they look like they're at like 500 or something, just trying to figure it out.
Okay, yeah, no, I haven't heard anything. I'll check ahead with the next sector.
Interesting indeed. So obviously they'd seen something that they can't explain. Pilots should really be well versed in what they're looking at. They should know the difference between satellites and other aircraft, etc. Now, the pilots were left ultimately with no answers, as air traffic control had said that there were no military aircraft in the area, and the pilots were able to rule out satellites. So some have suggested Starlink, which is SpaceX's answer to the internet, but the descriptions to me don't quite sound to match up with that. You can listen to it for yourself. 13 minutes. Find the link below in the show notes and have a listen for yourself. Rather mystifying, I must say. Let's take a look at sciencealert.com. So there's a new theory that suggests that Jupiter may have once been flat. Now, while the Earth may not be flat, a new theory suggests that Jupiter may have been flat in its earliest days. Astrophysicists at the University of Central Lancashire, located in Preston in England, made the discovery after running some simulations on how the planets in the solar system may have formed. When they realised that they never actually checked the shape of the planets in the simulations that they ran, they were surprised to see that Jupiter, our largest planet in the solar system, may have resembled more in the shape of a Smartie, or pancake, in its early stages of its formation. It's thought that what caused this was the result of the masses of gases that make up Jupiter and how fast it was spinning in those days. Again, it's another long read, but an interesting one. And if you want to read it, again, go and check it out in our show notes. And finally, the Shadow Hunters Northern Ireland group are running another experimental investigative evening this month. Now, I feel that this deserves a special mention as it's home based and open to anyone. And I attended their Elementum event in the Conway Mill last month, and I'm talking to Fra about it in this episode, no doubt. Now, the reason I'm including this is because their Elementum event was phenomenal. Okay, and there was lots of unexplained activity, particularly up in the attic of the now defunct mill. Let's have a listen to the video clip recorded by me of one of the notable events to happen. This happened in the attic, and you will hear myself, another investigator, a REM pod, and her Ovulus 5, which she senses a rather malevolent spirit, is probably the better way to put it. And then the Ovulus 5 was able to let us know that he was dangerous. Have a listen for yourself.
Come on, make it go closer to it. There we go.
That's amazing, that is. They're really making a point now, aren't they? You know, that they're here.
Wow, thank you. Orbs.
I think I was trying to get energy out of that.
No doubt. Are you trying to get energy out of that?
It did say manifest or construct.
Yeah. We need to leave.
Yeah?
Yeah. We need to leave right now.
Okay. Do we need a torch?
He's dangerous.
Aha.
See my shadow.
No.
Interesting, and I suppose if you're not used to that sort of stuff, it'll be rather scary for you as well. So basically what had happened there was that she had sensed the presence of a negative entity, a negative spirit. Ovulus 5 had said that he was dangerous. Once she turned her torch on, the Ovulus 5 then said, "See my shadow," and that's what she was saying no to. It genuinely fascinates me, and if you've missed it and live in Northern Ireland and wish to experience something like this for yourself, then they are running another investigation, this time at Grace Hill, which is near the famous Dark Hedges up in Antrim. You can head over to the website and see more, but it'll be held on the 23rd of March at 8 p.m. Now, it looks as though there are three kinds of tickets: a standard, an after-hours ticket, and curiously, some total lockdown tickets. Now, the standard tickets are from 8 p.m. until midnight. The after-hours appear to allow some guests to stay behind after the main event for an investigation in an area of their choice. And then you have the total lockdown event, which looks to be an overnight stay. So if you can attend it, and if you do attend it, then I will be very, very jealous of you. But if this is something that you're interested in, I would check out their link in the show notes below. That is all for the news segment. Now, let's move on to the interview. So, in this episode, I'm talking to Fra McDonald, and I suppose it's a rarity for this podcast if I've actually got someone from home this time, and he lives in Belfast and is the founder of Shadow Hunters Northern Ireland, a professional group of paranormal investigators who have a whole wealth of knowledge and experience between them. And I've got him with me on the phone this evening to talk about his experiences and knowledge, and I believe there's some team members with him as well. We might be able to have a chat with them. But Fra, are you there and can you hear me okay?
I'm here, buddy. How you doing?
Do you know what? I'm actually doing really good. It's Friday. I am not working the weekend. I could be better in the sense of I could be going out doing some paranormal investigations because I have the withdrawal symptoms from that. I mean, once you do it, you always want to get out at it, don't you? And I suppose it was with your group. You were the first ones that I went on a proper investigation with. So when I get back home again. As the listeners should know, I live and work in England at the moment. It's Fra that's talking me back into going home to join them again. But yeah, it's a good weekend. It's a good weekend. Long-winded answer for how are you?
Oh, good, buddy.
So I suppose the first question I've got to ask you really is, what was your earliest paranormal encounter that you can remember, and did that sort of influence you to set up your group?
For me, Chris, it's kind of a strange one. Going back way back, I would have been a fan of the paranormal TV shows, like everybody else. Most haunted, ghost hunters, things like that. But Facebook, it only sort of really became a thing, and I followed one paranormal team from here, from Northern Ireland, and I followed a online paranormal radio show in America, presented by a guy called Chuck. And randomly, he had actually messaged me and asked me would I like to come onto the show and talk about the paranormal. But obviously, at that point, I hadn't entered into this world, at that particular time. So I decided to see if that team from here wanted to go on instead to do an interview with him, and they decided that they would do it. So to say thanks, they basically had asked me to come out and do an investigation with them, which was in an old police station in Belfast. And the experience I had that night was absolutely crazy. So, you had doors closing. I literally, in the first night, seen a full figure on one of the landings, and that piqued my interest. Which, strangely, then that team asked me to come and give them a hand at another location to do a public event, and then I ended up on that team. Um, I was on that team probably about 2 years before I actually founded Shadow Hunters, but it very quickly became, as you well know, addictive. And
Yeah.
as much as most people say it's a hobby, it's very, very much a lifestyle. We eat and breathe it at the end of the day, as you know.
Yeah, I mean, I would be testament to that. I would say that you guys definitely do, and anyone that I would say who does do that, it is a hobby for some people, and then there's other people who do live and breathe it, and we'll talk about this later, actually. And I was being interviewed for someone else's podcast over the weekend, just gone, and I'd mentioned about you and your team and what you've got in your office. There's loads of trinkets and things dotted around the office. And
Yeah.
I've mentioned that, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later. But yeah, if anyone lives and breathes it, it is definitely you guys. And I suppose you have to live and breathe it if you're one of the few sort of proper professional groups, because Shadowhunters Northern Ireland is actually a company, isn't it?
Yeah, Shadowhunters NI is actually registered. The past nearly 4 years, we're actually registered under the social science and humanities sector for the purposes of research and development. So yeah, we have our own NI number and everything. But yeah, so we were fully registered.
And I suppose that is what sets you aside as well from the hobby groups, etc. I suppose it gives you more of an oomph to get out there and do things. Because if I remember correctly, you told me that you had a sponsorship from someone as well, to help you with your investigations, etc.
Yes, so we're actually sponsored by Infraready Paranormal Equipment. So Infraready are actually the number one producers of paranormal equipment within the whole of the UK. They have recently actually sponsored Help My House is Haunted as well. So that's a pretty cool sort of sponsorship to be under.
I think I've seen that actually, and I think there's a celebrity version of it as well. I think.
There is, yeah. And I know Chris Fleming, who was on the original season, he has just branched off with Imogen Ireland to do a Haunted Ireland season as well.
That would be. I'd like to see that actually. Whenever I get back home, see what see what houses have popped up. If anyone that I know would be there, and
Oh,
but that yeah. So you're professional, so it's 100% serious. It's not for a laugh or anything like that. And anything that you do or capture is documented accordingly and researched as well. I mean, I've even seen you show me some of the research that you've been doing. So. If anyone asks, these guys are definitely the real deal. And we were talking about the stuff that you've got dotted around your office as well. What are some of the unusual things that you've got in there?
yeah. We have different items that we've collected over the years. So obviously, as you know yourself, we do public events. However, we the essence of the team is doing private cases. So we do everything from private cases in homes till businesses, and stranger other locations and sort of cases as well. But over the years, we've acquired some items from different private cases that we've removed from the location just to basically help calm the activity levels down. We've then cleansed the locations. We've took the items to our office here, and we keep them cleansed to keep them at bay. But I mean, we have, for example, we have two what they call furbas, and they date back to way back in the 17th century India. And they were originally designed as pegs for tents. So the whole design of them are a three-bladed. It looks like a dagger, but it's a peg with three faces. And the whole idea behind that was that you pushed it into the ground to hold the tent down, but that particular fervor drew the negative energy from the ground that you slept upon. So those furbas were being misused within the dark arts. So we basically came across them in a private case, and we removed them from the location. So we do have likes of those in the office, which we keep cleansed at all times as well.
And I remember you telling
But that's
me. Sorry, go ahead.
I say that's just one of many items.
I mean, yeah, because whenever I was in the office first time, which is about a year and a bit ago now, I think it would might have been Christmas 2022. It's like a flying visit. Come, I had a cup of tea, having a good chat, catching up and what have you, and then studying some of the stuff that was around the office. And I remember seeing like bottles covered in wax. There's a box covered in wax. There's different dolls. There's loads of different trinkets and what have you. And there's one doll in particular, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, I think, that resides underneath a glass dome type thing, which I also mentioned on the other podcast as well, because the girl who was presenting it is a brother and sister team, and they're called We Believe Do You. That's the name of their podcast. And the moment she said that she doesn't like dolls and all that sort of stuff, I told her that story because that triggered that memory. And then she said she doesn't like the thought of exorcism, so I told her of the video that you'd shown me, and you could tell she's very uncomfortable whenever I'm talking about it. So I was telling her all that sort of stuff. But I remember you telling me that you sort of you told me that you're not a medium. You flat out and said, I'm not a medium in any shape or form, but you are sensitive to some of those energies as well. Is that how you identify objects in the house of being a negative energy, the things that you need to confiscate, or do you use other methods, or is it like a blend of methods?
We would really it would be a blend. I mean, yes, 100%. Like I would not call myself a medium whatsoever. I would definitely be sensitive. I can communicate with them. I work with spirit guide, things like that. But for us, when it comes to the investigations, we just don't rely on the sensitivity side of things on our senses. We would also rely on the equipment. Some people, would say that both can't basically assist with each other. But we have proven time and time again that both can work extremely well side by side. The equipment can validate what we're picking up with our senses, but at the same time, the senses can most definitely, confirm what we're getting picked up with the equipment as well. So it would definitely be a blend for us. I think to be one-sided within the paranormal field, I think you hold yourself back from really digging deep into the cases and getting really in underneath and finding out as much information about the happenings as you physically can.
Yeah, I mean, we're the same in our group with NIUFOS, because you've got the people who, would rely totally on their senses, and then you've got other people in our group who would rely totally on the technology. And I think the right blend is the sort of middle path, isn't it? Because it sort of complements each other, your senses and the equipment that you use, doesn't it? And I suppose it's different in the sense when it comes to UFOs and looking for items that are, have got negative energy, but it works both in the same, I would think, as well.
Yeah, I think what I think what I find interesting, obviously, you and I met some time ago now, and we've had many, many long conversations about both sides of what we both do. And
Oh
I
yeah.
think one thing that I find most interesting is that it's all energy.
And I would agree. I mean, I was saying the other day on the same podcast about how where a lot of the lights, anomalous lights, and UFO activity, and a lot of the paranormal activity as well, tends to happen in areas that are maybe granite in composition, or they're beside the a cliffside. It's to do with the crystalline sort of makeup of the terrain all around. I mean, the Mourne
Yeah.
Mountains is really active for nocturnal lights and ghostly apparitions as well. So yeah, I would agree that it's a lot of energy, and I suppose it's Michael Kaku or whatever his name. I can't pronounce. I can always butcher his last name. The physicist. He says that everything is energy. So you've got like science also confirming that everything in the universe is energy. Anything that we see or experience is all pure energy. And I would
So yeah,
definitely agree. And yeah,
most
we
definitely.
have.
This sort of-
Yeah, I mean, we have met. We've known each other personally now for a couple of years. Must be like 2018, 2019. And how we met
be
was
around.
we knew of each other because we spoke on Skype before,
Mhm.
didn't we? And then
We did.
I was home, and we went. My girlfriend, she was like, "Oh, they're doing this." Paranormal experience and investigation at the Crumlin prison. Would you like to go? And yeah, damn right, I'd love to go. And we did the first experiment in there, and then we come out, and there was a group of your team having a chat, and we just saw each other because I know you, and then you're like, yeah, I know you. You're the UFO guy, and yeah, you're the paranormal guy, and then yeah, it just got on from there, and uh, we've had so many late nights talking. It's absolutely unreal. We'll go to the Crumlin Room
We have.
prison. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm saying we definitely have. We've had many, many late night conversations.
No, definitely, yeah, and of course, it always or mostly centers on the paranormal. Of course, we live and breathe it, don't we? But we'll go to the Crumlin prison because that's where I had my first proper, investigation. And before I go into my own experiences there, um, how did you get to have like access all areas of the Crumlin Road prison, and what are the what's some of the more unusual aspects of it that you would like to share with us?
Well, when it comes to the criminal jail, I mean, it's a very different animal to the other places. The criminal jail itself, we put out the tender for a paranormal team every so many years, basically to come in as essentially the resident paranormal team and run the events in the prison itself. So it was out for tender. We've actually held the contract on two occasions now from Shadowhunter started, and it's went out to tender. We applied, and we put a proposal together. We put through a structure for the paranormal events and things like that, and it was accepted. So we've held the contract twice now. With the criminal jail itself, I mean, experience wise, the place has always been off the charts. It's a place that I'll always hold dear to my heart, because I suppose for me, yeah, it was really it was the start of shadow hunters because we had only been going maybe about 2 weeks before we actually obtained the tender. So when I originally found the team, in terms of experiences and sort of what sets it apart, the energy in the prison itself is it's off the chart, Chris, to be honest with you. And because of the history, which, as you know, there's been some darker history to the prison.
Yeah,
The dynamic of the energies that are in that location, they are indifferent to each other at times. They are the same as each other at times, and then you think you've started to scratch the surface and get to the bottom of those energies you're interacting with. And the next thing you could say, blinded by a completely different energy, and you're sort of left standing there in the dark going, oh, hello, okay. So this is new. Um, I think the reason why the location is exactly how it is simply because of the history. If you look at the paranormal and different entities and stuff, and you look at even something as simple as like a poltergeist activity, a lot of people automatically look at poltergeist and think it's a ghost. Poltergeist activity can be created not just by an entity, but it can be created by negative energy. So that poltergeist activity that you actually are experiencing, which is down to the negative energy within the home, within the location, um, it can get quite extreme, and it can build up. So I think with that particular activity, it's more to do with like of traumas, violence, things like that. Which, as I'm sure you know yourself, the criminal jail had its fair share of over the years from the 1840s right through. Um, so I think what sets it apart really is its history more than anything.
And I believe next door as well is the Mater Hospital. And I remember you telling me that obviously you've got your resident spirits within the Crumlin, and then you have like fleeting visitors who actually come from the hospital, and you've interacted with them before. And I also remember, yeah, it's what you were saying about, how sometimes the energies are the same and they're different, etc. There was one time, I think you lot were on a hiatus for a little, a little break from the criminal room prison, and I joined you again. And
Mm.
you said there was something unusual that you felt that there was no, um, there was an energy there that never used to be there, particularly down in the boiler room, if you remember. And you're like, there's a darker energy here that never used to be here, and it prompted you to break out your Vatican issued exorcism kit, if you remember that, because you said there was an energy
Uh,
there that shouldn't have been there, and you thought might not be human.
yeah, I do. I do actually remember that. Yeah. I suppose part of the hazards of the job, I suppose, um, with these locations and with the amount of activity that are in them, they can essentially become a beacon at times for other energies that are within the area or passing by, whether it's, maybe someone that's passed over, and passed away, or whether it's something, shall we say, that's never walked in human form. And they can sort of get the scent of that location and its activity and maybe be a little curious and creep in. At the same time, obviously, when it comes to public events, we have people from all different walks of life that come to our events as well. Um, and sometimes those people may not necessarily know that they have potentially an energy that would follow them or is attracted to them, things like that. And, you know, they could bring that energy unknowingly into the location as well, um, which at the end of the day, when they come in, those energies may like the surroundings and may want to call that location its new home because of the level of energy that's within it. So on that occasion that you're speaking about there, that energy itself, um, it would have came in with a public member, and I was able to track it back to the specific public member because I do remember speaking to them on the break and stuff of the event, and I remember feeling that unnatural, for want of better words, energy around them. I didn't at that moment in time because it was a brief few minutes realize the severity of it. But that particular energy decided to remain behind when that public member left. So yeah, that forced us to break out the extreme kit, shall we call it,
The big
and remove
guns.
it. Pretty much.
Yeah. And yeah, just out of curiosity, I don't remember if you've ever told me this or not, but have you got like anything in place to keep spirits there so they don't? So once they come, they can't follow you back. Would that be the case?
Yeah. So depending on what we're doing or where we are and stuff, we have certain procedures in place. So, for example, like with our offices, like our office has got spiritual protection, um, to the teeth. It's like Fort Knox
Yeah, I remember
spiritually to
that.
try and get into,
Yeah, I
which
remember
I'm
that.
sure you
Yeah.
probably picked up on when you came in. to the office last time. However, when we do go out and investigate as a team, and even when we investigate with the public, we always finish with a closing down prayer,
Yeah.
which we've done for the past nearly 10 years, and will continue to do so because it's always ensured that no energies have left location with anyone. That particular prayer would be the prayer of St. Michael, which is one of the prayers of exorcism.
Ah, okay. I'd say I knew it was the prayer of St. Michael that you would use. I didn't know it was one of the ones that was used in exorcism. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
interesting. And the only reason I was asking is because there's another group I know just down the road from me in Salisbury, Spire Spooks. And, you know, now and again I go and I'd visit them and go to their location. By day, it's an escape room, and by night, they investigate the whole building because it used to be a coaching inn years ago. And they said that they had encountered an energy that they weren't familiar with in there after having been there for about a year or so, I think. And they reckoned that it followed somebody who said that they were a demonologist. It came in with them. And they said that there was a mistake on their part because they don't do a closing down prayer to keep everything there, but they do something. There's like I can't remember what it was, but there's something that they do that ensures that whatever spirits come in there stay there, so they can't get rid of this weird entity that they've got in there. And
There's probably some sort of a binding.
I think that's what he said, a binding thing. That's what it was, and something had followed this demonologist in, and therefore had stayed. And from that point onwards, and I was there one of the nights this happened actually, on the top floor, the very top floor of that building. If a female, I think it's a female in particular. If females go upstairs by themselves to that room, they are often attacked. And a woman went upstairs by herself, and she was talking up there and doing whatever. And then she come running downstairs, and we were like, "What the hell's going on here?" And she goes, I think I've got scratched in the back of my neck. It just scared me. I felt something in the back of my neck." So her husband, the top of her shirt had pulled it down a bit, and there was 3 fresh, like scratch marks going down her back. And they were like, "Yeah, that sometimes happens." But that seems to happen whenever whatever this entity was had followed that person in. So I was sort of thinking,
Yeah.
maybe that's what that issue is. Maybe,
Yeah,
maybe.
it is something that is a hazard of the job. Again, where scratch marks, bite marks, things like that can appear on people. We have experienced it not only with team members on location, but with some public members and stuff as well. Um, the interesting thing for me is three scratches. Normally that's picked up as an insult to the Trinity, the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, which symbolizes negative energy. We have on a few private cases had to bind to a specific area of the building to contain. However, at that point, when it's contained, we will then prep for a cleanse. So, what I would particularly be doing there is if I've got that contained to one particular room, I would definitely be cleansing it at that point, just to lower the risk factor to the team, plus obviously the public members.
Yeah. Um, Going back to the Crumlin Road prison, because you're not in there at the minute, if I remember correctly. But what are in the Crumlin prison? Where would you say are the most active areas in there?
Um, in truth, Chris, everywhere,
So, like, yeah, everywhere would be. There's no one place in particular that
everywhere
would be.
we have there's no one place in particular that would be more active than others. We have had so many nights in the criminal jail, and every area on a regular basis has been off the chart in terms of activity. Until an equal amount. And I suppose the only way to gauge it would be individually for some team members. Other areas would be more active for them than others.
Okay. Yep.
The thing with that is that it's a simple case of that particular individual's energy interacting with the energy within that area. Just depends on obviously the level of activity that will come forward, the level of interaction, for want of better words. But as a whole, it's hard to say one particular area itself. For me, D wing, I always found would have been slightly more active for myself. Um, However, that being said, I will always would have had a lot of interaction in the coffin room. For others, they wouldn't have got any activity really in the coffin room apart from every now and again. But they would have found maybe seeming more active. So, yeah, again, long answer short of it. There's not one area of that jail that isn't as active as the other at any given time.
So yeah, I think it was the coffin room that first night that I had met you, in that in the run up to that Halloween, and you were like, "Yeah, stay
Oh, you got
behind for behind for private. We'll take you around, show all the place after the doors close around here." And I thought, yeah, I'm definitely doing that. And I think the first paranormal experience in that sense was down in the coffin room. You there's like a teddy bear that you've got, and it's like a built-in EMF reader, isn't it? And it was like responding to us intelligently. Somebody had like a voice box, and it was talking to us through it. And I remember people saying, "If you're here, go up to the bear and touch it." And the bear, would buzz or click. I think it is, isn't it? It's like a clicking sound, and it would light up. And then,
Yeah, it's a strange sound. Yeah, it would
yeah,
be like a clicking sound. The
yeah,
lights. Yeah.
yeah, that had happened. And then whenever somebody had asked, step away from the bear, and the voice box went no. And then the bear went absolutely nuts. It was like constantly lit up, and the clicking was like non-stop. And then eventually it did disappear. And I think that was the sort of first sort of paranormal experience that I've had like that. Seeing how everything works, which I thought was amazing. And yeah, I think the coffin room is, from what I remember, fairly active because there was a time that I was with you as well, and we were going down the steps, and I don't know if any of your team members who are there tonight with you now in the office were there that night, and we went down the stairs, and there was like a floral scent, like a perfumey scent, and nobody was wearing that, and it was like the first time that anyone has ever smelt that smell going downstairs into the coffin room.
Yeah, that's right. I actually do remember that. It's interesting though because that perfume smell would appear at various different times, completely sporadic throughout different areas within the jail. I mean, if we look at the history and stuff of back in the sort of mid 1800s, obviously having a bath or a shower in the home wasn't a massive luxury for most. So what the females used to do is they would have took like of lavender flowers and put it into water to make a sort of scented water, I guess, as a type of perfume, and they would have doused themselves in that for to hide the body odor. So yeah, when that sort of perfumey smell sort of appears within areas of the jail, I would link it to that 9 times out of 10.
And you know what? I suppose now that you said, that's actually what it smelt like. It was like a lavendery smell, but not like a perfumey smell in a sense. I would guess like a bath salt type lavendery
Yeah,
smell. That's yeah. Do you know now thinking back on it, that is actually what it smelled like, which I thought was really, really unusual. And it would follow us about and would disappear and then come back again, etc. So the Crumlin Road is a really active place. What
it really is.
what are some of your most memorable experiences in there, or anything that was enough to spook even you? Because you are quite brave. I mean, I've seen you go before, where there's a certain spirit there who you do not like, and I won't mention his name, but it has three letters in it, and he
Yeah.
doesn't seem to like females. And he will try to antagonize you. The voice box, he'll always come up with your name, etc. But you will not back down to him. So, and even then, you don't even look scared, or you don't appear to be scared or spooked, even though he's gunning for you. But is there anything in there that is the most memorable experience, or even a few memorable experiences, are enough even to spook you?
I suppose the one that jumps out at me at most was probably one evening. Well, when I say one evening, one night, it was probably about 3 a.m. in the morning. And all the team members had left. We had packed up all the equipment and stuff, and that was us finished for the night. And there was only 4 of us left. So that particular night, for whatever reason, we had actually parked the cars at the back of C Wing, and we had walked down the wing to leave some of the equipment into the boot of the car, and we had turned to walk back in to grab the rest of the equipment that was there, and we started hearing footsteps, and you could hear doors closing, and you'd hear some voices, and we thought, right, okay, so the things are starting to increase in terms of activity. That's dead on, no problem. We'll tread carefully, take our time. We'll get the rest of the equipment. We'll maybe hang fire for a few minutes just to see to what level it sort of gets to. So we went back to the circle to lift the equipment, and we came walking down C-Ring, and the entire place erupted with people shouting, footsteps, door slamming again, and it intensified. You would near enough thought that you were in a completely, ram-packed active wing of an active prison. And the atmosphere itself, it became quite dark, quite thick, and quite, I suppose, intimidating. So at that point, I think it probably reached about 3:30, 4:45 sort of direction, and I thought, you know what? We've had a long night. Our energies are drained. We're all pretty tired. We're not in a position to deal with this or investigate it. So it's maybe time to back out. So that sort of, I suppose, it made me slightly unsettled, and I suppose cautious. For me, it's strange. When it comes to like fear and things like that, I don't know. Call me stupid, perhaps. The feeling of fear for me over the years has changed. I use fear more as a tool. I suppose it comes from the sensitivity side as well. Um, but for me, I use the fear as a sense of caution rather than a sense of flight. Um, where rather than running out of an area, it'll make me pay a lot more attention to that particular area and the goings on within the area, and I suppose assess it a bit more thoroughly, just to try and get a fix on exactly what we're dealing with to see how we proceed. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah, and the prison is it is very active, and I've been with you guys, like I've said, a handful of times, and it's no stranger to the doors slamming, and I think I mentioned that in the last podcast as well. Like we were down in the coffin room one time, and you were talking. We were actually leaning over the sort of display coffin that's there. I can't remember what we were talking about or doing, and there was this massive slam upstairs. And I've told people that these doors, they're heavy. I mean, I've tried pushing them, closed, and you have to put your full body weight up against it. So it's definitely not a draft or anything like that. It's really, really weird what goes on in there.
Yeah, it's definitely an enigma within the paranormal world, that's for sure. But it's a location that has amazed me for years. I mean, we obviously have other locations that we would have residency with now, but obviously the Crumb is one that I keep close to my heart, definitely.
And I can see why, because it's reputed to be the most haunted building in Belfast, if not Northern Ireland, but it certainly is in Belfast. But some of the other locations that you go to, where are you operating out of at the minute?
So our office is based in an old mill on the Springfield Road in Belfast. It's called the Blackstaff Mill. Yeah, this mill dates back to the 1800s as well. Old linen mill, and it fitted well for, shall we say, our field. We took this office on over lockdown. Um, and obviously coming off the back lockdown, we got stuck into investigating it, and the activity in this place has been fantastic. As of September of last year, we also took on residency with a new location called the Conway Mill, which is 5 minutes from the office building. Conway Mill itself, we had events on over Halloween. We've actually got an event on there next Friday, the 26th. That mill, it did take us a little bit longer than we, I suppose, our patience, shall we say, wanted for to break contact with the energies that were in that location. But once we found that common ground and the direction started, it came on thick and fast, mate. And Halloween was absolutely crazy. I mean, I remember at the end of one of the Halloween nights, it was just the team left, and we were standing in the big forecourt of the Conway Mill, and we knew that we were the only people left in the building. We knew hands down we were the only people left, and we could only hear what we could describe as near enough like a party of a massive group of people going on from the upper level in the forecourt. And the upper level is literally a mezzanine platform walkway. So we must have stood there for a good half hour, and this continued. We did try and track it, and we just could not find it. We could not get to the bottom of it. We could hear women crying and everything, throughout that half hour. It was intense and it was insane. So that location itself is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, because that's I think the last time I met you, that's where we went to, wasn't it? After meeting up in the office, and then going to Conway Mill. Is that correct? And
That's correct.
yeah, so yeah, I remember that, and hearing things around there. But the attic for whenever I was there last, that seemed to be the most active place at that time because this was just before Halloween. And
Yes.
you and myself, we went up there. The public can't go there for obvious reasons because there's that iron ladder that they have to sort of walk up, and then the small hole in the ceiling they get through. So obviously, I would imagine you didn't take any members of the public there, which is a shame because of what happened
Well,
that night that we were there.
that actually changed, Chris. So we actually did get permission,
Ah,
because of our
good.
public liability. The way that is, we actually got permission to take public members who felt they were able to go up those ladders, actually up into the attic, over Halloween. So we did actually manage to change that due to the public liability, and the interaction that they had up there was fantastic. Um, like the shadow play in that attic is second to none. The atmosphere changes so sporadically. We at one point we were actually using. I don't know if you remember me showing you the ghost dice.
I not that I recall. No.
Okay? So ghost dice is a very old Victorian technique. So it's a set of dice, 16 dice, and it has
Ah,
letters on it.
yes, I do remember. Yes, I remember that.
So,
That was used in the coffin room back
yeah,
at the Crumb. Yeah. Are you back?
I'm here.
There we go. Yeah, I think we lost connection there, but it's okay.
Oh, okay.
I was in the middle of a question. I can always ask it again and cut that bit out. Yes, I do remember the dice actually because that was used at the Crumb, and yeah, I think this was also just before Christmas a couple of years ago. That weird dice that you've got, and yeah, you look for words in response to questions. So yeah.
Yep, correct. Those dice proved absolutely fantastic within the attic with the public members over Halloween.
And you mentioned shadow play. Now, I didn't see, not that I can recall any shadows whenever I was up there, but I can put my hands down and say to anyone listening to this, it's definitely not the shadow of us or anyone else up there because it's very, very dark. The only light is coming through a few windows in the ceiling, so it's definitely not shadows from us, should we say?
No, that's correct. And the thing with that is as well, because obviously of how high the mill itself actually is, we can rule out obviously like coming in from streetlights and things like that. So the attic itself, as you know, is it's quite dark, so we can rule out any shadow casting from ourselves. Literally, like I've had public members stand at the end of that attic, and not more than 5 feet away from them, there's been a shadow standing right there, and they could see it, and I could see it, and the onlookers from the public they could see it. So it's not a case of it was only one or two people. It would have been the entire group of the public and team members that were attic that were witnessing it at the same time. And the thing with that is, one thing that I would always do with the public members to prove to them that what they're seeing is not their shadow, is I would get them either to take a step to the left or right away from that particular shadow or move an arm, and you can see physically that that public member, as they move, the shadow itself is not replicating the movements either.
So it easily rules that out as well. Yeah.
Yep.
The last time again I was with you in that mill up in the roof space, a cat ball was set on a chair. Do you remember that? And then it lit up and
That
then just
like
took off the
came flying
chair.
off.
Yeah, just took off the chair as if a cat was on the chair and flicked it off. And it certainly didn't roll off, not with the force that it left the chair and what have you. Has anything like that happened since I left up in the attic or anywhere else in that place?
The cat balls have been flung along the attic on several different occasions since the last time you were there, my friend.
I really need to
A
get
few
back.
pieces of equipment have also been tipped over as well. And the last time actually we were in the attic, three of us could only describe what sounded like a stone getting through at us, and landing a mere amount of feet away from us. However, when we looked, we just physically couldn't see the evidence of it.
Yeah, I'm sort of wondering where would a stone appear up there? There's no gravel or anything up there. It's literally just all wood the whole way down. So it's a lot of interesting stuff that happens there. You'd said, actually, now that I remember, that it took a little while for you to make contact with them. Do you find that in some places you sort of have to gain the trust of spirit? Let's say David Attenborough, for example, going out making a documentary or whatever, and he has to keep visiting the same animals in a routine type thing to gain their trust. Would you find something similar like that for your paranormal studies before they would interact with you?
Most definitely, at times, yeah, 100%. I mean, what a lot of people forget whenever we're talking about, these energies or spirits or ghosts, whatever way people want to label it, um, they they're still human. It's just that they're not in physical form anymore, so they still display the same traits, the same behaviors, the same thought processes in the afterlife as they do when they're living. So when you go into the location for the first time, it's as if you're going into someone else's house, is the way I always put it. You have to go in respectfully, and you have to, just the way you and I started talking, you have to start somewhere. You have to start building that platform up and building that trust up, and then that's when communication starts flowing not only a lot more, but a lot more fluently and a lot more comfortably, and you get better results then. So most definitely, I'm a firm believer that when you go into a location, there are times where energies aren't as forthcoming as others, and you do definitely need to make that bit more work, or sorry, to do that bit more work, in terms of not only gaining their trust, but finding the common ground. Um, to communicate with them. I mean, going back to the criminal road jail, there's one particular energy which I obviously can't mention the name of, but that particular energy, no one in the team really could link with and didn't really like, and for some reason that particular energy didn't particularly like, really anybody in the team. However, the way I used to describe it is it was as if we had a love hate relationship. Um, I was definitely not a fan. He was definitely not a fan, but we communicated
And
because for some reason we found a level.
yeah, and it almost sounds like there's each one has their own sort of personality. So you might have to treat each individual spirit slightly differently from the other, I would think.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, you definitely wouldn't treat a child spirit the exact same way as you would treat a spirit of a man. You also wouldn't treat the spirit of a man the same way that you would treat the spirit of a female. You would address and communicate accordingly to that particular entity with its age or its sexual orientation, for want of better words.
It does make a lot of sense, actually, whenever you think about it like that, because you see it on TV. You know, you've got the guy on Ghost Adventures. He's always confrontational with pretty much every spirit that he comes across. Or you've got Yvette Fielding screaming for some random reason, and you know they all treating the same, you know, each spirit the same. But I've seen you physically, you know, interact with different spirits. So obviously you can see the good rapport that you've got with each one. You sort of know the personality or get to figure it out after a while. And I've seen it in action. And anytime, I'm not just saying it because I'm speaking to you now, or this is what I think that you want to hear, but I've seen you get the most results than I've been with anyone else. You know, if they've went ghost hunting. So whatever method you use and your approach, it's definitely the way to go. 100%. It really,
Yeah,
really is.
I mean, for me, Chris, the way I look at it is, you know, you don't treat them any different than what you would treat someone who's still alive. At the end of the day, if you go into a room of people or with a person in it that you know you're trying to build a rapport with, you don't start demanding and commanding and shouting and you know things like that. You go in with an open mind. You go in gently and assess the you know sort of the person and their energy, you know, their wavelength, and sort of figure out what level they're on and what type of person they are. And I suppose it's like being a social chameleon. You adjust your approach to suit that particular energy's personality, for want of better words.
Yeah, and again, it's the results speak for itself. I mean, I've seen it, and it definitely does work. Some of the events that you run, you know, for members of the public to join you, we've already spoke a little bit about that. But for those who are sort of hemming and hawing on it, and they're sort of on the fence, do I go or do I not? If they were to go, you know, what are some of the methods that you would show them to investigate, and what can they expect going out with shadow hunters?
So with our events, some of the experiments we would use some of the stuff that you would see on the TV programs. You know, your K2s, your millimeters, your spirit boxes, portals, things like that, spirit boards. Um, but it would be the approach, which you've obviously touched on. You know, we would bring the public members in, and they would essentially become the investigators for the night. We would essentially just guide them in the right direction. One thing I always say to the public members at the start of the night when they do come in is the more they get involved, the more they get invested within the investigation, the more they're going to get out of it. So if they sit back from doing experiments, um, they're not going to get obviously as much out of it as somebody that is you know, fully down that rabbit hole in the middle of every experiment, putting all their energy and all their efforts into trying to get the results. You know, for me, the way that we have designed our events, we want the public members to come in and be shadow hunters for the night, and us just simply guide them. Um, however, you know, one thing that I would highlight to them would be that it's definitely not like what you see on TV. Um, it doesn't happen that way. It can from time to time, but it doesn't happen that way. TV programs, um, they all state they're for entertainment purposes. One thing that I always highlight to people when we speak about paranormal TV shows are when you watch them, eventually you forget that there's even an ambient music in the background. That ambient music's there psychological leave for to intensify the experience for the viewer, and subconsciously you're not realizing that it's giving you that sense of apprehension and things like that. So when something does happen in that TV show, you react. Where at our public events, there's no background music. It's exactly you know what happens. They're not performing monkeys, but we do our best to help encourage the interaction between the public and obviously the energies that we interact with. You know, at this minute in time, we have actually just developed a brand new event, which we are obviously doing next Friday on the 26th of this month, called Elementum. So
Yes.
we're doing something very different than what we've done before. We are doing some experiments that would be recognizable, but we are doing them in a different way, and we're involving the elements.
I read it on your Facebook post about Elementum. I thought this looks interesting, and I read a little bit in it briefly because I was actually in the middle of work, but I saw the notification pop up, and I go, I'll have a look at this, and I had a look at it quickly, and I thought, yeah, that does sound a little bit different. How will you use, or how do you intend to incorporate the elements per se into the investigations, and have you sort of trialed with it before and got some results?
So, to give you one example, the Spirit board, which you've seen before,
Hmm.
which obviously, as you know, I always highlight, it's not a Ouija board.
Yep.
It's all about using positive energy and good intent for to bring positive energy forward rather than allowing negatives to step forward. So what we've done with that particular um, essentially piece of equipment is we have actually created a water spirit board. So essentially we have a containment of water, and that water will have pebbles submerged in it with the letters and the numbers and hello and goodbye. And we have created a planchette that literally will float on that water. And we use the same technique that we would use in Spirit Board, where people obviously put their finger on the planchette for to generate that kinetic energy, which all living people give off, for the allow spirit to come forward and help move that planchette.
I need to find an excuse to get home for that evening because that really does. Now that is unusual. That is. I've never encountered anything like that before. I've never seen anything like that before. And if anyone is listening to this, I would, if you're going to it, I'm very jealous. I really, I really am. I need to find an excuse. I've just got to be a reason for me to get home. It's got to be.
Joe,
Um,
I can give you the perfect reason, mate.
and what's that?
It's been a while since you've been out investigating with me.
Yep.
It's overdue.
It is long overdue. I'll have to see if I. Do you know? I will seriously consider it. I'll not just say it, but Friday. It's like a week away, 2 weeks away from now ish. About a week away.
A
Yeah,
week. A week.
yeah. So I will actually take a look and see if I can spend a long weekend to come over. We'll see. I will try my
Well, I'm looking
utmost best.
forward to seeing you.
I would really like to see you and your team again, 100%, and to have a crack at this new thing that you've actually developed. It's more interesting if you've developed it yourself. So I'd love to see the results of that. Um,
It's definitely it's exciting times, Chris. You know, at the end of the day, by you know yourself, by involving the elements themselves, they all generate different kinds of energy at different levels. So to incorporate them in with the experiments and create essentially new or spin-offs off experiments.
yeah,
I've been doing this 14 years, and I can tell you I am extremely excited for this one.
14 years. That is a long time to be dedicated to that. I must say, and out of those years of experience, what are some of the more interesting things you've learned, and has it changed your perspective on life? Thinking what you were like before, pre-experience times to now.
Um, I think over the years, from the experiences that I've had and from the interactions I've had, um, the way I always describe it to people is it's like an awakening. You know, pre paranormal, you'd done your 9 to 5, you went home, you had your hobby, you went out with your friends every now and again. You'd done your normal daily things. Um, but over the past 14 years, it's definitely changed me because you realize that most people don't see and experience the things that we do. And when you do, the world becomes so much bigger. And it's kind of like pre paranormal, I was seeing in 1080p, 30 frames per second, where now I see in 8K, 100 frames per second, complete 360 degree. Um, the world becomes a lot bigger. But even like if you look at the thought of, people ask always the question of what's your thought on death and do you fear it? Pre paranormal, I suppose, yeah, there would have been an apprehension to death, but now I'm yeah, I know that death isn't the final stage. You just transition, but it's not the end.
Yeah, and that's I can hands down say that it's been proven to me. I've seen it myself. I've heard so many people tell me, about their experiences, and just in the last podcast, the episode before this one, I was speaking to a woman called Kathy from the United States who had a near-death experience, and she told me about, her experiences there and how she no longer fears death through that experience alone. So the proof is there. It's 100% there.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, if people were to ask, for validation, for want of better words, of life after death. For me, I would always say, if you can, find a professional paranormal team in your local area, and if you can tag along with them and experience what they experience, go for it. But if you look at it even from the scientific community, I mean, you look at it from physics, and there is so much more strength to the paranormal now than what there ever has been. I mean,
Yeah.
you and I have had the conversation before about Professor Robert Lanza,
Yep.
who developed the theory of subconscious energy, and it's obviously all about physics and about how energy doesn't die, and after death that energy continues on, because as you and I both know, obviously, like, the body itself is made up of atoms.
Yeah.
Those atoms are generated by, obviously the brain, the personality is made up of electrons. It's all energy. So when you die, that energy doesn't die, it continues on. So the easiest way that I put it to people to kind of, get your head around it if you're not a physical person is, it's kind of like a car. The car body stops working, but the engine's still running. And that's essentially what biocentrism is. And it's a real interesting theory if anybody ever wants to look into it, by Professor Robert Lanza, who's the head of the physics department in Brazil.
Interesting. Yeah. And I do remember talking about that in depth with you one of those nights I was in your office. So very, very interesting. And yeah, I've had a glance over it. It can go very in depth, and I would recommend anyone, if they want to learn a little bit more about that, or theories behind all that, definitely check him out. You'd also mentioned, you said you'd recommend people to go out and get involved in it. What advice would you give people who would like to do their own investigation, or the first timers doing their investigations?
In truth, I would always advise people to not go straight away, off their own back and start investigating. I think it's very important to find a professional team that knows exactly what they're doing, because as you know yourself, and as you've seen when you've been out with ourselves, and obviously with other teams, the hazards and the dangers can be real. The physical effects can be real, and they can be lasting. So I would always advise people, if you're interested in getting involved in the paranormal, find a professional team and go out with them, learn from them, learn their techniques, how they approach the investigations, the cautions, the safety aspects, develop your skills and your gifts that way. And then, if you find that you still don't want to stick with a particular team and you want to go off by yourself, then you're in a better position to do so. I mean, I do know a few people that are individual investigators that, do investigate solo. However, those people have all gained their knowledge and their experiences off the back of being involved in some degree with a team.
Very, very sound advice, and it's always good to get your lessons from people who have experienced it, and not
Yeah.
necessarily what you would see on TV or read on a blog. For example, you need to get out there and actually do it, get hands on, and experience it themselves.
100%. And the thing is, as well, obviously, some teams are quite private, quite, sort of closed to people coming out with them and stuff. So, in that sort of level, then you have got the options of obviously, doing like the public events, like of ourselves and other teams do as well. So, there is ways and means of getting involved, and learning how to do these things safety. I'm not going to sit back and say, is there that, there is no hazards, there's no dangers or risks. There most definitely is. And there are obviously the skeptics out there that would say that, obviously, it's nonsense and it's on people's heads and stuff. But you know yourself as well as I do. We have seen the effects to know that it's very, very real. So an hour of caution is always something that should be heeded.
Never a true word has been spoken. I would I would say, because it is a very, very real thing whenever you get to experience it. You've mentioned Elementum. Are there any other sort of events or experiments coming up this year?
Yes, so at this moment in time, obviously we are gearing up for Elementum, which is obviously on next week. We are going to be running another event in March, up at Grace Hill, up at the Dark Hedges. We have done a few events there in the past. We've done a lot of private nights there in the past, and it is an absolute fantastic location with an array of different energies, both human and nature spirits and things like that. So you've got a great array of different energies that you interact with at Grace Hill. We are developing another event because, as you know, we are completely crazy for trying different new things to push the boundaries and get better results. So we are developing what we are calling an event called True Darkness, which is removing certain senses to enhance other senses for to try and help get interaction on different levels.
Now, that would be
So that
interesting.
will be
Yeah.
as well.
No, that would be interesting, actually. Yeah. So for anyone who, I mean, we've straight into an hour now, which is good. And I didn't feel I had to carry the conversation like I've had with some people before. But
You and
we'll
I
be.
never do.
I'm telling you, we could literally talk for hours on this. We really, really could.
We have.
And
We
I've,
have.
yeah, and I definitely will have you back on at some point, because there's so much more to talk about, so much more to say, so much more I would have loved to speak about today, but time just runs away. But for anyone who might be interested in going to see or attend Elementum, or anyone who just wants to check you out, where can our listeners find you?
So they can find us via our website at shadowhuntersni.com, where they can find information out about the team, and obviously like of our events and tickets that are up for the events for sale. And they can also find us via Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, just by looking up Shadowhunters ANI, and we'll pop up.
And as always, links to the Facebook page and the website will be in our show notes for anyone who might be interested in taking a look at that. Listen, Fra, I will begin to end it there. Thank you very much for coming on. It's been an interesting conversation, and anyone in Northern Ireland, and if you like to see or do something like this, I thoroughly recommend that you seek these guys out and attend one of their public investigations, because I can guarantee you, when you go to one, you will be yearning for more, and I can promise you will not be disappointed. Fra, thank you very much indeed for talking to me this evening, and I hope to get to meet up with you guys soon.
Chris, always a pleasure. Hopefully we'll see you next week, buddy.
Cheers, man. Thank you. From McDonald there, talking to me about his encounters, research, and Shadowhunters Northern Ireland. Now, I really can't recommend enough that you go and check these guys out. Now, remember, at the time of recording, this was prior to the Elementum event. Now that's happened, but if you do have the opportunity to attend their Total Darkness, and you've got the nerve to do it, then you can attend it up in Grace Hill early next month. I suggest you go check them out. So that concludes episode 1 of season 2. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed making it. Coming up in the next episode, I talk to Andrea Sides, an American living all the way in Mauritius. Would you believe it? I am not jealous at all. She talks about her spiritual development, her experiences, and how to take control of your life without the need for drugs or therapists, where you can take part in her guided masterclasses at Vitality Unleashed. I'm Chris McMurray. You've been listening to the Close Encounters podcast, and until the next episode, have a good week.